3 weeks ago, Solo Sikoa told Roman Reigns to come and get him. Those were his exact words, delivered with the kind of arrogance that only comes from a man who genuinely believes the balance of power is in his favor. Come and get me, not a plea, not an opening for negotiation, a dismissal, a challenge, the public rejection of an olive branch extended by the tribal chief through Jacob Fatu on SmackDown, thrown back in Roman's face with contempt and a smirk and the confidence of a man who thought he was winning the long game. And then Monday Night Raw happened in Baltimore. The Ula Fala was placed around Jacob Fatu's neck. The ceremony was conducted. The Bloodline, Roman's Bloodline, the original tribal chief's version, the reunited family that Solo had spent months trying to fracture and replace, stood together in a ring in Baltimore and looked more unified, more powerful, and more legitimate than it had in years. And Solo Sikoa watched all of it. And then he went backstage and waited. And when Roman Reigns, the Usos, and Jacob Fatu came through the corridor ready to leave the arena, Solo Sikoa dropped to one knee. The man who told Roman to come and get him got down on one knee and begged to come home. And the wrestling world stopped breathing. Wrestling Stands is here for every extraordinary second of what happened and what it means. Quick favor before we break every layer of this down: if you're enjoying the content here at Wrestling Stands, please smash that like button and hit subscribe. Over 98% of viewers watch without subscribing. It's completely free for you, but it means the absolute world to us and genuinely helps the channel grow. Already subscribed? You absolute legend, thank you so much. Right, let's get properly into it. Let's start with the Ula Fala ceremony, because it is the event that triggered everything that followed and it deserves to be understood in its full context before we get to the backstage confrontation. The Ula Fala, the sacred necklace that represents the tribal chief's blessing and the official recognition of a family member's place within the bloodline, is not a prop. In the story WWE has built around this family, it is the physical embodiment of belonging, of being seen and acknowledged and formally welcomed by the man at the head of the table. When Roman Reigns places the Ula Fala around your neck, you are not just added to a faction. You are brought into the family in the most meaningful ceremonial way this storyline possesses. Jacob Fatu receiving it in Baltimore was significant for reasons that extend far beyond the immediate narrative. Because Fatu's journey to this moment has been one of the most complicated, most tortured, most reluctant arrivals at acceptance that the Bloodline saga has ever produced. The refused orders, the one-knee acknowledgement, the Turin ultimatum, the tears in the corridor after he rescued the Usos from LA Knight. Every step of Fatu's path toward this moment has been difficult, contested, and loaded with genuine ambivalence. And now the Ula Fala sits around his neck. Now the ceremony has been conducted. Now the family, whatever its remaining internal tensions, has a new official member who arrived through fire rather than through easy compliance. That ceremony, watched backstage by Solo Sikoa, was the precise moment that everything shifted. Let's rewind to SmackDown, because the come and get me moment is the essential context for understanding why Solo's subsequent collapse of pride lands with the weight it does. When Roman sent Jacob Fatu with an invitation for Solo to return, an extraordinary act of generosity from a man who had every reason to be furious rather than conciliatory, Solo's response was not gratitude. It was not relief. It was not even considered deliberation. It was mockery. He laughed at Fatu. He sent the messenger back with a message designed to humiliate both the man who delivered it and the man who sent it. Come and get me, directed at Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, the man whose return from absence dismantled Solo's entire power structure without breaking a sweat. That response told you where Solo's head was in that moment. He believed his position was strong enough to refuse an olive branch. He believed his faction, Tamar Tonga, the MFTs, the alternative bloodline he had built during Roman's absence, was a viable, sustainable force that did not need reconciliation with the original family. He thought he was still winning. And then Baltimore happened. And the Ula Fala went around Jacob Fatu's neck. And Solo watched the faction he had tried to compete with look more powerful, more unified, and more like the real bloodline than anything Solo had assembled. And the math stopped adding up. The backstage interception is the scene that will be talked about for years. Solo Sikoa and the MFTs positioned in that corridor, blocking the exit route of Roman's group. It read initially as a confrontation. As Solo escalating from come and get me to something more direct and more physical. The positioning suggested aggression. The presence of the whole faction suggested strength in numbers. For a moment, it looked like Solo had decided that if Roman would not come and get him, he would bring the fight to Roman. And then Solo went to his knee. The collapse of that expectation is staggering in its dramatic impact. Every person in that corridor, Roman, the Usos, Fatu, the MFTs, every crew member and producer within I-Line had prepared for one kind of scene. And Solo delivered something completely different. Something nobody in that building had seen from him before. Something that, given everything Solo Sikoa represents as a character, the aggression, the pride, the refusal to submit, the man who sat at Roman's table and decided he deserved the head chair, should have been physically impossible for him to perform. He begged. Solo Sikoa, on one knee, begged the original tribal chief to let him come home. Let's talk about what brought Solo to that knee, because the answer is not simply that his faction is weak or that Roman's is strong. It is considerably more personal than a power calculation, even though the power calculation clearly played its part. Solo Sikoa spent Roman's absence doing something that he convinced himself was leadership, but that, in his quieter moments, he must have understood was substitute leadership. He ran the faction. He made the decisions. He wore the authority, but the acknowledgement he extracted was never freely given. It was fear-based compliance from people who were operating in the absence of the figure they actually recognized as legitimate. Solo was the tribal chief because Roman was not there. The moment Roman returned, the genuine acknowledgement that Solo had never been able to earn began draining away immediately, and the Baltimore ceremony crystallized something that Solo had perhaps been resisting for weeks. Watching Jacob Fatu receive the Ula Fala, watching a man who only months ago was Solo's most loyal, most devastating enforcer officially welcomed into Roman's bloodline, was not just a political defeat. It was an isolation event. Solo's most powerful asset, the man he had positioned as his weapon against Roman's authority, was now standing on the other side of the room wearing Roman's sacred necklace. The MFTs, for all their loyalty, could not match what that image represented. Solo looked at the unified bloodline in Baltimore and saw exactly where the story was heading without him. Toward irrelevance. Toward being the footnote in a saga that he believed he was going to define. The knee was not weakness. It was clarity. Solo finally saw himself clearly, and what he saw was a man running out of road. Now, Roman's response. Because this is the decision that everything hinges on, and it is simultaneously the simplest and the most complex choice Roman Reigns has faced in this entire storyline. The simple version, take Solo back. The family is reunited. The faction achieves its maximum possible power and unity. Roman's position as tribal chief becomes unassailable because every significant Anoa'i presence in WWE is operating under his authority simultaneously. From a pure power standpoint, accepting Solo's return is the rational decision. But this is not purely a power calculation for Roman Reigns. This is personal. Solo did not simply challenge Roman's authority during his absence, he actively worked to replace it. He rebuilt the faction in his own image. He attempted to permanently reframe who the bloodline was and who it belonged to. He rejected the olive branch on SmackDown with contempt and public mockery. He told the tribal chief to come and get him. And now, having watched Baltimore make the futility of his position undeniable, he is on one knee in a corridor asking for forgiveness. Roman Reigns, the character, has spent years building an identity around the concept that everything has a cost, that acknowledgement is earned, that belonging to the bloodline is not a gift freely given but a privilege that comes with obligations and consequences. If Roman accepts Solo's return without exacting any price for the betrayal, the rebel lion, the public dismissal on SmackDown, what does that say about the standards the tribal chief actually holds? What signal does it send to Jacob Fatu, who suffered months of tension and a forced one-knee acknowledgement, that Solo gets welcomed back from a position of far greater defiance without comparable consequence? Roman Reigns letting Solo back into the fold freely would be out of character in a way that his most devoted observers would immediately notice. There will be terms, there will be conditions, there will be some form of price exacted for the months of Solo playing tribal chief with Roman's family. The question is not whether Roman forgives, it is what the forgiveness costs. And what about Tamar Tonga and the MFTs, who were present in that corridor and watched their leader drop to his knee in front of the man they have spent months defining themselves in opposition to? Because their position in all of this is genuinely complicated. They built something with Solo. They followed him, fought for him, operated as a genuine faction unit under his leadership. And now their leader is on one knee asking to be readmitted to the family that they were assembled as an alternative to. Whatever Solo's return looks like, if it happens, the fate of Tamar Tonga and the MFTs within that new configuration is a thread that cannot simply be left hanging. Does Roman take them all? Does he take Solo and leave the others in the cold? Does he take nobody, demand further proof of Solo's sincerity, and leave the whole question unresolved for another week? All of these options produce different, compelling story directions. And WWE, if they are being genuinely smart about this, which the evidence of the last several months suggests they are, will not resolve it cleanly in one conversation. They will let it breathe. Let it simmer. Let the uncertainty of what Roman decides produce the audience investment that makes the eventual answer land with maximum impact. Solo Sikoa told Roman Reigns to come and get him. 3 weeks later, he was on one knee in a Baltimore corridor begging to come home. The wheel has turned completely. The man who thought he was winning the long game watched the ceremony, felt the isolation close in, and made the only move he had left available to him. Whether Roman Reigns accepts that move, rejects it, or extracts a price for it that Solo will spend months paying, the Bloodline saga just produced its most dramatically complete, most emotionally satisfying single moment in recent memory. And wrestling stands will be here for every second of whatever comes next. Thanks so much for watching. It genuinely means everything to us here at Wrestling Stands. We'll see you in the next one.